From the shining domicile that is Pittsburgh Comics, my old mannered comic shop owner, Colin McMahon, transforms into the world's greatest comic book talking TV host. Join us, true believers, for Comics Now!
Hey everybody, welcome to Comics Now for March 2020. Everything's starting to gear up. We're getting ready. The big events are all starting normally in May, so now we're getting all the little gear ups, all the little, here's a little teaser here, here's a little teaser there. We also have a couple really neat big books coming out this month that I'm really excited about. So we'll jump into everything. Starting off, we're doing Valiant Month this month because Bloodshot is coming out in March, and it's their big movie. And it's kind of funny because it's from the people, the producers of it were the former Valiant people who later got removed from Valiant and have now started their own company. But we're doing, in honor of the big Bloodshot movie, kind of the first of the, like the second tier of publishers' movies coming out. We're going to do Valiant Month. So double points on all Valiant graphic novels, including all the Bloodshot ones, if you want to see what's going on before the movie comes out. And then for book club, we're doing one of my favorite books recently. It just wrapped up, and the book actually just came out last week at the end of February. So we're doing Second Coming, which is the story of Jesus coming back to Earth to live with a superhero and try to correct some of the misconceptions that are happening on Earth. And it was a really good book, written by Mark Russell, who's a real store favorite. He's done a lot of stuff that I have greatly enjoyed and has sold really, really well, because that means I'm not the only one that enjoys it, which makes me happy. I just got back from the Comics Pro meeting in Portland, and one of the neat things is Mark Russell lives in Portland, so he came to the meeting, and I was able to meet him and tell him how much we all enjoy his work, and he seemed genuinely happy to hear that. It was a good time meeting, seeing all my friends, all my colleagues, lots of good talk, a lot of positivity, which was really good this year. Not so much the publishers telling us what's coming out, but more what they're doing to help us. And then the retailers talking amongst themselves about things to do things better and get around common problems that we all have. So another really good meeting. So back here, it's March, and I'm re-energized and ready to get going. So that's what's going on at the store. That's what's going on with me. And now let's get on with the books that are coming out in March for you to enjoy. We'll start with DC this time. DC has the biggest book of the month. The first one is Strange Adventures, and I'm really excited about this. One of the big books a couple years ago was Mr. Miracle, and that was written by Tom King and drawn by Mitch Gerads. And they're back together doing another book, which is Strange Adventures, which is the story of Adam Strange. He's been on Rann. His big thing is going between Earth and Rann, and he's kind of the man of two worlds. And he has helped Rann win a big interplanetary war. And he's come back to Earth with his wife to retire, and all the accolades have followed it. But also some of the problems and some of the decisions he made during the war are starting to haunt him. And so it's going to be about that. And it's interesting, it's drawn by Mitch Gerads, who's going to be a little more the darker one. And then Doc Shaner is going to do kind of the lighter part of the story. Doc Shaner, I think one of the big things he's known for was Shazam. He's just a real clean, bright kind of artist. So it's interesting to have the kind of a darker artist and a lighter artist doing the same book. So that should be really good. I'm really excited for that one. Another one is the Robin 80th anniversary. They're really digging in on this. And so we're getting, it's a 100-page spectacular, a bunch of different covers, a different one for every decade. Also a bunch of different stories by different creative teams. So we're going to be seeing a lot of these coming up. But in March, we're getting Robin. We're also getting Flash 750. This is coming out, it's a 750th issue of Flash. Another one with a bunch of covers, lots of stories, including kicking off the next big story arc in Flash. So if you're looking for a place to jump on, this is it. They're also doing some facsimile editions that kind of tie in with some of this. They're doing Brave and Bold, number 28, which was the first Justice League, which is cool. They're doing Detective Comics 38, which was the first appearance of Robin. And then they're also doing Mystery in Space 75, which was the first appearance of Adam Strange. So it's nice that these facsimile editions really tie into some of the events going on. Also in Batman, they're getting ready for Joker War. So I think Joker War will be starting in April, but we're starting to set the plate right now for what's going to be happening in Joker War, and it's supposed to be really, really big. So that's what's going on with DC. I think they have a lot more coming out this summer, and they're kind of holding all their cards close to their vest. So we'll find out about that soon. But now, on to Marvel. Marvel's got a ton of stuff coming. Starting off, Strange Academy. Now, this is basically Doctor Strange realized that they have a lot of young mutants and superheroes who have magic-based powers, and that they need some way to train them so that they're not just kind of out in the wild, misusing magic and causing problems. So he's formed a team that includes himself, Brother Voodoo, the Ancient One, Scarlet Witch, Magic from the X-Men, Damian Hellstrom, and all your other favorite Marvel magic users. So that's new. And it's also neat because it's written by Scotty Young and drawn by Humberto Ramos, who's done a ton of Spider-Man stuff in a very cartoony type art. And I think it'll work perfect for this kind of book. Spider-Woman is back. After not being around for a while, she's back. Carla Pacheco and Perry Perez are doing this one, and basically she's been out of it, and she's trying to get back in. She takes a security job, and then all of a sudden things go really, really sideways on her, and so we'll see where this goes. Spider-Man Noir. They did a couple series a while back at the beginning of the whole noir thing with the Marvel superheroes set in the 1930s. And so they're back again, especially because I think of the popularity of the character from the Into the Spider-Verse movie, voiced by Nicolas Cage. So when you're reading this, you have to hear that voice. But it's 1939, war is coming, and Spider-Man is working at home, keeping the streets clean, when there's a murder at the Black Cat Club, and all signs point to the culprit was from overseas. So Spider-Man has to go overseas into the theater of war and try to track down this murderer and get involved in all that fun stuff. And then there's some new X books coming. We're starting to see kind of the second wave is starting of the X books. We're getting Hellions #1. This is written by Zeb Wells and drawn by Steven Segovia. And basically, when Krakoa was created, it was a haven for all mutants with no judgment on good or bad. Just all mutants were allowed there. But they didn't really think about what they were going to do with kind of the bad guys when they got there. But Mr. Sinister has a plan. So he's gathered up his group of kind of the bad mutants and created his Hellions, which include Scalp Hunter, Wild Child, Empath, Nanny, Orphan Maker, Psylocke, and Havoc. So that's the first of the next wave. And then we also have Cable #1, and this is written by Jerry Duggan and drawn by Phil Noto. And basically, Cable is a grizzled old veteran of wars from the future, but now he's young Cable, and he'll eventually get there, but how is he going to get there? And this is kind of the story of him living in the present, knowing what his future is. And does he try to create his future, or does he try to defend the current from becoming the future? We got a couple facsimile editions from Marvel as well. We're getting Incredible Hulk 182. And the reason for this is it's kind of the second appearance of Wolverine, a little carryover. 181 is the one everybody looks for, but they decided to do 182 as a less common book that people might be interested in. And then a real weird one is Thor 229, and the reason they're doing this one is because in it was a house ad for the first appearance of Wolverine, so it technically was the very, very first appearance of Wolverine. So that's why they're reprinting this one, which I thought was an odd choice. They're continuing the giant size list. I think they're doing 4 or 5 different giant size one-shot books. These are all written by Jonathan Hickman about different X characters. This one's Magneto. And basically, Krakoa may be only for mutants, but mutants still need to deal with the human world around them. And Magneto has a plan for that. This one's drawn by Ben Oliver, who's a really fascinating, like a painting type artist, and really, really neat. So this should be good. Road to Empire, the Kree-Skrull War. This is kind of a setup book for the event. All of it spins out of the events of the Kree-Skrull War. So what this book basically is I think last summer or so there was a book called Meet the Skrulls, about a family of Skrulls who were living in America, just kind of undercover. And it's the story of the parents telling the kids about the Kree-Skrull War to kind of get them up to speed and also to get the readers up to speed on exactly what it was so we understand what Empire is. Marvel #1. This is an interesting thing they're doing. They're really kind of, they took the anniversary of Marvels and the idea of kind of revisiting the past of the Marvel Universe, and they're really going full bore in this. And this is just Marvel. It's kind of overseen by Alex Ross, who was he was the artist on Marvels. And basically, he's letting creators who haven't dealt with characters do an early story of that character. So it's some big name characters or artists. Frank Espinoza, who's done a lot of indie type stuff, is doing a Spider-Man story, and then Steve Rude is doing a Nightmare story. And there's going to be a bunch of these over the next couple months. So it's just kind of a little glimpse at the Marvel Universe through the different eyes of a different art, like a superstar artist who hasn't done it before. We're also getting Marvel Snapshots, and this is letting people do an early story of some characters. The first one is Submariner, and it's Alan Bennett is writing this, and he's a big TV writer with help by Kurt Busiek, and it's drawn by Jerry Ordway. And this is a story of after the war, Submariner comes back, and he's at Palisades Park outside New York, and meeting up with a reporter lady that he knew in the war, and all of a sudden they get attacked. And it's how you're looking at this, like Marvel's was from an outsider's view of the Marvel Universe. So it's going to be this reporter's view of how this battle and this attack happens. And it's going to include some other things like the Young Allies. And then there's a second one, which is Fantastic Four. And this is written by Evan Dorkin, who's done a lot of different things, most recently Beasts of Burden, and drawn by Benjamin Dewey. And this is the story of Johnny Storm's 10-year high school reunion. And he goes there and hijinks ensue, but it's told through the eyes of his ex-girlfriend, his old high school sweetheart, and how she sees everything happening. So it's just kind of a neat little twist, a little different take on the Marvel Universe. Outlawed #1. During Incoming, something happened, I think kind of akin to Civil War, where the new Warriors caused the blow up and caused all of Civil War. This is something happened during Incoming, and basically now the young heroes have kind of been made illegal. They'll let adults be superheroes, but the kids are they don't know their powers, they don't make the right decisions, so they've been outlawed. So we have Outlawed #1 by Eve Ewing, who's been writing, I believe, Runaways, and Kim Jacinto. And so it's going to be the story of these superheroes who now are not allowed to be superheroes, but I have a feeling they're still going to be superheroes. 2020 is still rolling on. There's a new one, Rescue. This is about Pepper Potts and her rescue armor, and basically she's finally broken free of Tony Stark and has made her now going her own way, making her own decisions. And of course, this is when Tony melts down and he needs her the most. So will she be able to save the day? And then there's 2020 Iron Age, which is going to be like a collection of different stories of events and things from both sides of the conflict. So it'll be a little big story idea type thing. Fantastic Four 20. Empire is Coming. This is another little prequel one to it, where there's going to be a big player who's going to be an elder of the universe that's never been seen before and is going to first appear in this Fantastic Four, and it's going to change how the Fantastic Four are and how they deal with Empire. There's 2 new Gamerverse books that they've been doing, spinning out of the Marvel Avengers game. There's a Captain America book and a Black Widow book, which is going to give you a little more backstory to the game. Star Wars has a new one coming out, Bounty Hunters, where basically Valance and his fellow bounty hunters, Bosk and Boba Fett, were kind of ambushed on a mission by Valance's his old trainer by the name of Nakano Lash. And basically then Nakano Lash vanished. And now he's reappeared, and all of these guys want to seek vengeance. So they're hunting him down, along with lots of other bounty hunters. So those are the big 2. Now we get into some of the other stuff. We're getting into Image has a new one. Jonathan Hickman is back. He's back at Image with a new #1 now that East of West is done, and it's called Decorum, and he's doing with Mike Huddleston. And basically, there are many assassins in the known universe. This is the story of the most well-mannered one. So that's good to always have a well-mannered assassin. Mirka Andolfo's Mercy is a new one. Mirka Andolfo is an Italian creator who did Unnatural. And she's back with this one, Mercy, and it's basically like a crime noir type storyline. There's a real neat trailer online if you look for it that they showed us out at Comics Pro. But yeah, she's like a femme fatale with some mystical past. Stealth #1. Basically, for decades, Stealth has waged war on crime in Detroit, but he started to kind of go a little overboard recently, and nobody's sure why, except the only person that does know is Tony Barber, who knows why, because Stealth is his dad, and he's suffering from Alzheimer's. Die, Die, Die returns. This is the Robert Kirkman, Chris Burnham story. I think it's taken about a year off, but now it's back with number 9, so we're getting more stories from that. We're also getting an interesting crossover, Outer Darkness and Chew. Chew's the story of Tony Chew, who's a police detective who, if he bites something, his taste gives him clues as to who did it and what happened. And Outer Darkness is a 25th century space story about a guy having a spaceship in space fighting demons and monsters and stuff. And they're both written by John Layman, so he decided to do a crossover between the two. I don't know how that's going to work. Then we have 920 London is an original graphic novel, basically about 2 emo kids who are struggling. They're more than friends, less than lovers. They're trying to grow mushrooms before the world ends. Send help. And it also looks a little anthropomorphic, at least by the cover. Dark Horse has one I'm really, really looking forward to called X-Ray Robot. It's written and drawn by Michael Allred. Basically, Max is a family man seeking more interesting life. While conducting a new experiment at work, the fabric of his reality is torn before his eyes, and a robotic figure appears claiming to be his 277-year-old robot self. And the robot has X-ray powers to expand his knowledge. Starship Down. Basically, this is a story of they find this spaceship that crash landed on Earth thousands of years ago in Siberia. And the scientist is trying to figure out what it is about it, but there's lots of interference from the Russian government, from her own people, and she's trying to figure out what happened and what this is before society comes crashing down. IDW has a fun one, Transformers versus Terminator. It's set in 1984 when a deadly race of machines emerge from another time. Will a robotic guardian be able to protect the Earth, or will the T-800 fail in his mission to prevent the world from falling to the hands of the Decepticons? Sonic. I normally don't talk about Sonic, but he has an annual coming out. It's a big chunky one talking about the untold tales of the metal virus. I figure with the movie in the theater, there's going to be a little more interest in it. And it's 6 untold tales from the Sonic universe, so that could be fun for all the Sonic fans. Star Trek Hell's Mirror, and this is J.M. DeMatteis, who has a long, storied history of writing comics, is coming back to Star Trek for, I think it said, for the first time in 40 years, and it's a story of Khan and the Mirror universe that he's doing, just a little one-shot. Judge Dredd Final Witness, Judge Dredd story. We're going to see a little more about Judge Dredd stuff coming up later. But this is about a guy who discovers about some corruption in the city and not only is on the run from the city government, but Judge Dredd is also on his trail. Dynamite has some stuff. He has Killing Red Sonja. Mark Russell is doing a second Red Sonja series. In the first one, he had to defeat the evil emperor to become Queen Sonja, but in doing so, she raised the ire of the emperor's son, who didn't necessarily love the emperor, but that was his position. He was supposed to be emperor, so he will do anything he needs to take her down, including using some magics that he doesn't really have full knowledge of. And what can go wrong there? They're also doing an original graphic novel. I guess there's a series of books called Repairman Jack, and it's being written by the writer of the novels. And it's a story of Jack is basically, if you have a problem, he can fix it. And there's these alien creatures that he thought he destroyed, but there's one left, and he has to take it out before it takes him out and takes over the world. Boom has some neat stuff. Fence is back. Fence was a series that was really popular, and I think it ended at 8 issues. But it's back as an original graphic novel for the next story arc, which is good. So if you're a fan of that, it's coming. There's also a new R.L. Stine graphic novel about, it's called Just Beyond the Horror at Happy Landings, and it's about a family that goes out for a fun camping weekend and things go wrong. So good for the kids, give them some more stuff to read, and then they won't be able to sleep and all that fun stuff. Wicked Things. This is John Allison, who just won the Eisner for Giant Days. Continuing some of his stories. It's a new series about everyone's favorite child detective, Charlotte Grote, who's 9 years old, but she's been framed for murder, and now she has to join the police to clear her name, and where she normally would run rings around the police, now she has to work with them and see things from their side. King of Nowhere is a new one where a guy, Denny, wakes up outside this town that's known as Nowhere, and he doesn't know how he got there or where he is, and as he slowly gets his memories, his past life comes crashing into him, and he has to figure things out quickly, and it's a little story about some confusion, mixed identity, or confused identities and things like that. There's a new Jim Henson Storytellers. These have been very popular, and this is about ghosts. And it's like the first one is a story about Scandinavian ghosts. Normally just little 4-issue miniseries, but just going into folklore and stuff, which have been really, really well received. Action Lab has one called Sweetheart. And it's about this town where there's bad creatures in, and the townspeople have to live their life always on fear of being attacked by these evil creatures. Aftershock has Artemis and the Assassin as a new one. For a price, a top secret assassin organization will travel through time and do whatever is needed, even interfering with watershed moments. And in this one, Maya has been assigned to kill Virginia Hall, but who is the greatest spy in World War II. Unfortunately, Virginia Hall has the secret information for D-Day for the Allies to help them win, and if she kills them, it will turn World War II on its head. So we'll see how that goes. Join the Future is a new one from Zach Kaplan, who his big last series was Eclipse. He's done a lot of Image and Boom and Aftershock work. And basically this story is there's these mega cities, and they need more people because that's how it helps them grow. But the cities give you everything you need. Housing, food, everything, and it makes them more powerful. But some of the rural areas, the smaller towns, don't necessarily want to join. They like their autonomy. Well, as this one town is trying to be absorbed by one, they fight back, and it's a story of how far you'll go to keep your beliefs. Ahoy has a new one, and this is a good one. This is Billionaire Island. This is from, once again, my friend Mark Russell. And it's basically an island where billionaires go, and as long as you have the money, you can do anything you want. But the island's ultra-rich inhabitants are about to learn that their ill-gotten gains come at a very high price. So this is be fun, nice little social commentary. So we'll see how this one goes. I'm looking forward to it. Archie has an interesting one called Super Duck. And normally I wouldn't have paid a lot of attention to it, but it's written by Frank Thierry, who's done a ton of work for Marvel and lots of other companies. And it's basically Super Duck cleaned up Ducktown and got rid of all the bad guys, including his arch nemesis. And then he kind of retires. There was nothing else for him to do. Now it's a few years later, and he's being hired as a bodyguard for a rival of his arch enemy. And he has to decide if he wants to put the cape back on or not. AWA, it's Artist Writers Alliance, I believe, is a brand new company, and they're coming out with their first 4 books this month. I'm going to have a lot of them coming in. They all look really good to me, and they have some really good talent on them. The first one is The Resistance. It's J. Michael Straczynski, who had a real big run on Spider-Man, also Thor, when Thor came back, and Mike Deodato, who is free from his Marvel contract and is now doing what he wants, and he's doing this one. And it's basically a global disaster leaves hundreds of millions dead in its wake. Shortly after, a few thousand suddenly manifest superhuman powers. Are they harbingers of more perils to come, or Earth's last hope? Another one called Archangel 8 by Michael Moreci, who's done a lot of recent small indie stuff. I know he's done some stuff at Vault, and C.P. Smith. And basically, there's a war between heaven and hell, and there's these 7 archangels from all the religious texts. But there's this one extra one that never gets written about, and basically he doesn't necessarily abide by God's laws, and he faces the enemy on his own terms and shows just how bad good can be. Red Border by Jason Starr and Will Conrad. Basically a Mexican family get across the border trying to get to America for a better life, and end up basically in a horror story, like a haunted house where they seek refuge and things go very, very badly. And another horror type one is Hotel, with 2 L's, so like Hotel Hell type idea. And basically you won't find it on any map, but when you're in need and you're driving down Route 66, you'll find it, and it's its own little nightmare if you go in. Mad Cave Studios, they had a big presence at the Comics Pro meeting trying to make a splash. They have one called Hellfighter Quinn. Basically, Quinlan Jones, aka the Hellfighter, thought he'd hung up his mask for good, but he's forced into a tournament controlled by hidden clans to get control of the magical stone. And is he going to want to work for them, or work on his own, or just ignore it all? Oni has a new fantasy adventure called Dryad, and this is by Curtis Weeb, who did Rat Queens. So that's definitely his niche. So Rebellion is doing a best of 2000 AD. They were there at the Comics Pro meeting and talking about they're doing this because they realized that 2000 AD has been around in England forever, but it never got any foothold here, and they're trying to give us a glimpse of what it is. And so it's a best of, it's a big chunky book with a lot of stories from the modern era, but you're going to get like an Alan Moore story and a bunch of stories like that about Judge Dredd and the other 2000 AD type stories. So if you've always been interested in it, I think this will be a real good opportunity to take a chance. Rebellion also has one called Dragon Whisperer. In a world of, it's like in a of clockwork and steam, the cursed airship captain has been looking for a dragon for his whole life, and he's finally found one. Scout Comics was there with a lot of different things. They have one called North Bend #1. The U.S. is on the verge of economic collapse and political revolution, and desperate to keep control, the CIA enlists Brendan Kruge to test an experimental mind control drug on unwitting Americans. So, your government at work. SourcePoint Press has one called Hank Steiner, Monster Detective, and I thought that was a good enough title and explained it, so that sounded fun. And then Valiant has a new one. They're bringing back X-O Manowar. He's been dormant for a little bit, so they're bringing him back with a new #1 by Dennis Hopeless Hallam. And basically, torn from the past and bonded with a living alien armor, will X-O Manowar become the hero the world needs now? As a futuristic force arises to destroy the planet, only this ancient warrior king has the courage to stand against impossible odds. And then the last one is from Vault. Vault's been doing a ton of stuff. They had another good presence there, and it was nice talking to them. They did These Savage Shores that came out not that long ago. And Ram V was there, the writer, so it was nice talking to him as well. But they have one, it's by Zach Thompson and Alberto Albuquerque, called No One's Rose. And centuries after the fall of society, the last vestiges of human civilization are housed in a massive dome city powered by renewable energy known as the Green Zone. Inside lives a brilliant bioengineer who could rebuild the planet. Unfortunately, her brother also lives there, and his goal is to bring it all down. So, those are the big books, the notable things coming out. As always, we still have the next issue of so many great books. Daredevil, particularly, has been fantastic lately. But lots of stuff coming to keep an eye out for. Lots of stuff going on in the store. Free Comic Book Day is coming. It's getting closer and closer, which is scary for me, getting the preparations done. So we're doing Valiant Month here at the store, double points on all Valiant books. Tim made a great display of some of their books, and just ask questions. We'll point you in the right direction. And then for Book Club, that's coming up the last Friday of the month, we're doing Second Coming by Mark Russell, store favorite. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, it's pittsburghcomics.com, Pittsburgh Comics on Facebook, and PGH Comics on Twitter and Instagram. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for Comic Previews Theater. Thanks.
Silly old dog, are you sure you want another bone? That'll be the 5th bone you eat today. You'll ruin your stomach and cry like a miling. Miling? Haven't I told you about that one? About the vengeful infant spirit haunting the forests of Tibetan? Sounds like a real bone chiller. It all started in the frozen fields of Scandinavia. The times were harsh back then. Famine, epidemics, and disease had devastated the country. But even in the darkest of days, there's always a glimmer of light.